What's good, people? This is the Lightbringer. You're watching Lightbringer TV, and today we're going to be doing a show on basically dating in the last 20 years. How it's changed, how it's evolved, how women have adapted, how men have adapted. So, let's get straight to it. So, 2012, I would put it at 2012. That was a major shift in the dating market. So we're gonna look at it as two halves. We're gonna look at it as pre 2012, and then we're gonna look at post 2012. So pre 2012, social media did not have the hold that it has on society. So you had the main way to meet a woman at that point in time, prior to 2012, was to approach. Physical, eye contact, one-to-one interactions. So you might be at a bar, you might be at a festival, at an event. It might be a social gathering, a comedy club, etc. And you had to put your bid in. You had to go out there. You had to iron your shirt. Back in the day, we had to put the shoes on. You don't see as much as that now. And yeah, you would be suited and booted, and you'd go out there and see who was choosing. It was very much a presence thing. So you might not have the best looks, but your presence could override it, or your humor, your charm. A twinkle in your eye. That would be one way to kind of gain some leverage in the dating market. So you had women basically had a far smaller circle. They had a far smaller circle of dating options. They were basically limited to the men that were in their physical perimeter, within their radius. That was their limit. So an attractive woman from let's say Croydon, South London, she might have only had access to the guys in South London, a few guys across the other parts of London, and it would generally be the guys that had the gusto to actually approach her. So that kept her. She was still the dating market was never easy. I'm talking about, let's say, the 2000s, the very early 2010s. The dating game was never easy. It just was. It definitely was easier. You just had more of a chance, just from a straight numbers game. So she might have had, 30, 40, 50 guys in her phone book, let's just say. Yeah. Maybe that's probably too high. I'll probably say 20, 30 guys in her phone book. Yeah, any one sort of time. She might, back early 2010s, there were a few little websites, social medias, but they did not have the same mass scale as we do now. So they were largely limited, and you could DM a girl on, back then it was like Facebook, just before like IG kind of popped off. Facebook, I want to think like 2008, 2009. You could hit a girl in a DM on Facebook, and you had half a chance, maybe 25% chance she would see your message and respond, or she might just say, where do I know you from? It was that type of thing. But obviously now you ain't getting that. You'll be lucky if she even reads your message. So yeah, so basically these women, they were far more accessible, and you definitely had a shot. It was worth, the ROI was worth it. Going out, buying a little bottle. I wasn't really into the table thing when I was young, but it definitely was worth going out. And to be fair, the West End game wasn't really as relevant to the urban scene. So you could go out to there was a scene called the EC scene. That's what we used to call it, me and my boys. And it was like Liverpool Street, Aldgate, Bank, Embankment, that sort of area of London. And yeah, suited and booted, you go out there, you might spend 40 quid for the night, 30 quid for the night. It was like £15 entry. You might buy two drinks. Drinks probably back then were probably like £6, £7. That was it. Yeah, I mean, there was no real drink heavy culture in the black community in London anyway. That's definitely more of a white thing. So yeah, do you know what I mean? And you might, I mean, it wasn't even expected to buy a drink for a woman. That wasn't actually a standard. It wasn't. It definitely wasn't at that time. You could do it, but it wasn't an essential. And then came 2012. So IG actually, I believe they founded around 2011, but I will say it probably took a year to really gather full steam. Things don't just turn around straight away as soon as they're released. So 2012, IG. So people, I remember it very clearly as well. People, some of the attractive women, the cream rise to the top basically very quickly. So it became apparent, okay, these are the attractive women. These are the women that trigger the algorithm. These are the women that people want to see more of. And they were rising to the top. Followers, 5K, 10K, 15K, 20K. These are the early days. So in London, there wasn't many girls with like more than like 20K at that point. And just to know, having a big follower count does not actually translate to a woman's looks. There's a lot of women in London with 30K. I mean, talk about now, there's a lot of women in London with like 50K, 100K, 150K that they're like strong sixes. Yeah, I mean, maybe weak sevens. Like they're not actually, they just might have something about them. Maybe they've got some type of association that props them up a little bit. But there's girls in Colombia, in Brazil, Dominican Republic with 1,000 followers, with 400 followers, 600 followers that are eights, strong eights. You know what I'm saying? That may change eventually, but it's just different. Social media in the West is very different to social media in the developing countries. So the leverage, that was the start of the leverage. And then effectively, male attention became extremely cheap. It was a case of, well, before I had a circle of 40 dudes on my phone book, and the guys in the area that might look at me but didn't want to approach me because they were too scared. I'm talking as a woman, by the way, in the shoes of a woman, should I say. That was their circle. And then they had there was a few apps like Facebook, Facehood. So it went from that to now having 5,000, 10,000 followers, engaged followers. So what does that do? That makes the price of attention very cheap. That makes it so that women now can play men off against each other. They don't see it that way, but that is literally what it is. It's literally a case of, well, I'm going to make you all compete indirectly for my attention. It's a case of, well, I'm going to throw up these first traps. Back then, that's another thing I want to get to, not to diverse, but it was hard to get a picture of a woman in like revealing clothing pre-2010, like in lingerie or in bikinis or in underwear in London. Anyway, I can't speak for America. It was not easy to do that because we're more conservative. So yeah, but anyway, not to diverge. So yeah, you basically now, if you've got 5,000 engaged followers, most of all guys, you can say, well, I'm only going to date, oh, not even date, I'm only going to consider the guys that have the 8-pack and the jawline. Or I'm only going to consider the guys that have, the Mercedes 300. And then they start adding those together. They're like, okay, well, now he's got to have both. And then, okay, he's got to have that. And he's got to have a 70K jobs. Because in London, there is not a lot of 6-figure jobs. I mean, they don't really exist. If you line up 100 black guys and you say, okay, there will be no 6-figure jobs. Yeah, there will be no 6-figure jobs. Will there be 6-figure earners? Possibly, but it'll be through business. It will be through business, basically. There is some of the black guys that can really, really hustle, myself included. So yeah, so basically you can play off against each other. It becomes a a ladder basically. And yeah, if you're not cutting it, then you don't even get your DMs answered. So that changed the game. That really changed the game. So men for a minute who were outside of the knowledge, who weren't just aware of what was going on, they're not intelligent, they're not thinking men. They just kind of like play the way they play. They don't actually strategically look at the game and decide that they want to win. Yeah, those guys are gonna have to deal with, obviously, and they have been dealing with, the overweight women, the women with multiple kids, the women with they're just less desirable women, basically. And there's a lot of that because in London, if you line up 10 women, at least 6 of them are going to be undesirable. We do have the highest obesity rate in the UK. So that was the game being played. That was the kind of the adaptation. Then also I noticed a change in the way women looked at families. So pre 2010, pre 2012, there was more teenage mothers, sorry. A lot more teenage mothers, women in their early 20s having kids, blah, blah, blah. Then 2012, things became more aspirational. So it was a case of, you're seeing these people traveling, you're seeing these people going to these places, especially 2013, 14. It really that trajectory really started to take off with posting like, remember back in the day, it was food, taking pictures of nice plates of food from fancy restaurants, taking pictures. Camera quality wasn't as great back then, but you could still definitely see what was going on. And it became an aspirational thing, all these apps. And it was like, if I have a child, I'm not going to be able to take these trips. I'm not going to be able to take all these lovely flights. It's going to take me out of the game. So there was a significant decrease. And that's what started the whole decrease in women having kids. I think I should look these stats up. I did look these stats up a little while ago, but I think the birth rate was probably about 1.9 or so, 1.9. And then like now it's at like 1.6. It was closer to the reproduction rate, but it just definitely dropped off. You don't see as many women with kids. There's a lot of women now in London, 28, 30, no kids, and having less kids as well. People, if they have kids, it's 1 or 2. It's not like 4 kids. Like, they don't see that much anymore. So the aspirational nature, and then coupled that with the influx of intention and engagement, meant that, okay, well, they can go to the highest bidder. And the highest bidder, it was like an auction house. The price got higher and higher and higher and higher. Maybe 2013, 14, chick might have been happy with a little, kind of like a little TGI Friday or something, a little, what was that back in the day? That was probably like £30 a head. By 2016, 17, 18, that's laughable at that point. That's like, no, you've got to, it's got to be Novikov, it's got to be Nobu, because they've seen that all on social media, and that's their standard. I remember back in one particular, there's a few occasions, several occasions, but one particular occasion really jumps out at me. This girl was beautiful. She was a solid 8 out of 10. A 7 if she's not your preference, but to me she was definitely an 8. Lovely, slim, sort of coffee complected young lady. I took a Chinese buffet. That was like £12-13 a head, all you can eat. And that was it. That was about 2010. I remember distinctly, 2010. So 2010, 2011, the game was still good. Those were some very good years for in Lightbringer's lifetime. Those were some very good years. Like, just when you look back and you think of the quality mixed with the low maintenance, that was some good times. By 2012, 13, it really just started to deteriorate in terms of now these women were becoming monetized. So the attractive women, which were readily available and willing, are now effectively monetized. They're effectively, well, you're going to have to take me here, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to I'm gonna play you off against each other. I'm gonna ignore you. I'm gonna answer your messages back. Wait, and in fact, the game changed. Like back in the day, you get a chick's number. If she didn't like you, okay, she would give you slow messages. Now you ain't even getting the number. You ain't even getting the number. She might direct you to her IG. She might direct you to her OnlyFans. Because she knows, like, why would she give? Back then, there was only a few numbers that she gave out, so her batting off a few guys wasn't a big deal. Now she would be battering off hundreds and hundreds of guys, so she ain't gonna give a number out. That becomes more privatized. That becomes more of like a VIP club, you know. And then all the other minions, they're outside. They're outside of the rope, and they've got all they can get is the IG or the Snap, whatever these young people do, TikTok. So yeah, the game changed. So like now, I would say the adaptation for men. Let's talk about the adaptation for men. So it. Okay, so now let's talk about the passport bro movement. The passport bro movement really, it's been going for a while. I don't know. Maybe I noticed this. I personally started embarking on this journey 2016, but brothers have always been doing this since like the 90s. Yeah, like Brazil in the 90s, the 2000s, but it's just been more under the radar one, and we haven't had the power of social media really to push it. So there's definitely been the word out, like even from the early, like 2012, 13, 14. The word's been out, but really and truly what took it to the next level was it was Austin Holloman. Shout out to one MT, one master teacher. He's been solidly in, but it's been more of a how would I say, like a diagonal growth. Yeah, Austin Holloman was straight out the gate, straight to the sky. You know, straight to the sky. So that type of growth was indicative of the timing, and the state of play, and that was 2021. I believe that was 2021. Was it 2021? No, I think it was 2022. I've lost track. Yeah, it was like maybe September 2022. So like 9 months ago. I want to say like 9 months ago, roughly, is when he really started to jump out into the online space. And yeah, it just the attitude mixed with the key thing with Austin is he's young. So when it's a 50-year-old guy, there's been a lot of guys in their 50s like Charles Tyler, Taylor Made Dreams, Richie Mack, but those guys are in their 50s and 60s. Yeah, so those guys, they're not going to resonate. The message is not going to hit home as hard. It doesn't resonate with young guys. It just looks like, oh, some old guys they can't really deal with the US dating game, so they're going over there. But with Austin Holloman, he's a young dude, 22 at the time, came in the game, or 23, one of those, came in the game, and yeah, that's what resonated. That's what made it a kind of like a meme. That's what made it it made it catchy, and it just caught on. So that really shone a light on the game, and from that, you had a lot of people joining the movement, a lot of people supporting the movement, getting behind the movement, a lot of people posting the content, and that's gonna ultimately just it's marketing. It's good marketing. That's what it boils down to. That's gonna really push the voice of the passport bros. That's gonna push the voice of brothers traveling and get the word out. And that's the adaptation, because that's the only real adaptation. The West, the UK, US, Australia, etc., they can never really come back, because it's set in its ways. They're failing societies now. They're both in decline. Women are not going to come to the table. The obesity rate is a big problem in the black community. You're not going to get that obesity rate down. I think it's about, in America, it's like 80% overweight. 80% of that number is obese. Yeah. Women, Kevin said it best. Women, 125 to 130 pounds. That is the absolute sweet spot. Yeah, if you notice on my page, a lot of the women, if you really know about women and weight, They're in that weight range for the most part. 125. Some might even be a little lighter. Some might be a little heavy. But 125 to 130. A woman at that weight is at her best. And Kevin said it. That's why I've got big respect for Kevin. You know, rest in peace. And women in that weight group in America is probably going to be about 10%. No, maybe 20%, because let's go by the maths, yeah? Let's just say 20% to be generous. That cuts down the whole dating options for men, because men do not want overweight women, especially upperly mobile men. We do not want overweight women. So you're dealing with a pool of now 20% women. Then you got to factor in women that have boyfriends already, husbands. You got to factor in women that are actually somewhat attractive. I mean, if you're in shape, it's hard to be unattractive, but you know, you got to factor that into a bit. Attitude, then factor in, there's probably 4 or 5 other things you can factor in. Yeah. Kids. I don't know if I mentioned that one. If she's got kids, then, you know, that's a wrap. So you're really, let's say at 20% and just make an estimation, you're really only really trying to deal with about maybe 3 to 4% of women. And that's what it is, really. That's kind of like where the game messes up in the UK and the US. UK, we have obesity. It's the highest, most obese country in Europe. But we don't have like the super extreme obesity, because the food here, we don't eat the crazy big portions like we have in America. But, you know, it's getting there. We have a lot of chubby women. So women that are just a bit fluffy, a bit overweight, a lot of that. You know, but we don't have as much huge ones. But it's growing. It's always growing, unfortunately. So now, anyone that's economical, that's analytical, will understand when something is rare, it increases in value. So you only have 3% of women that, let's say, as an estimate, which are wifeable women that are available, wifeable and available. You know, 125 to 130 pounds. Yeah. So when it's rare, those women now are good. They're the women with the high IG follow accounts. They're the women that have 50,000, 100,000. They're the women that are playing the game online and they're monetizing themselves because they're rare. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it wasn't as rare. Less easy to monetize. Now you can monetize because it's rare, and they got the platforms, which is why 2020 OnlyFans popped off, because everyone was at home. It was like, okay, well, we want to get a glimpse at these rare beauties. We want to see, you know what I mean? Guys were lonely. There's way more guys sexless now. So guys are they're doing anything they can. But what they really need to do is get their passport, get their flights booked, book an Airbnb, and travel. Brazil, Colombia, Dominican Republic, you know, East Africa is an area that I want to go to as well. I've been to Ethiopia. That was cool. I want to go to Rwanda, Tanzania, possibly Kenya. For the brothers that are into, I'm not really into the Asian women, but brothers can go to Asia if they want. You know, Philippines, Thailand. So the options are there. You've got huge countries to explore and visit and seek other dating options, because the West is pretty finished. It is pretty finished, I must say. You've got a limited amount of attractive women, and you've also, in America, there is a lot of money. A lot of money in America, so the money congregates around these attractive women, which is why you get women expecting, you know, $600 dates, $7,000 holidays after you've known them for 2 months, $10,000 shopping trips, you know them 2 months, because you've got a small amount of attractive women and a huge amount of money in the States. UK, in London, there is a lot of money in the concentrated areas like the Mayfairs, the Kensingtons, those areas, which is where women, and what's funny is women complain about passport bros, but women will go and focus on Mayfair and Kensington and Knightsbridge. Those are like and Chelsea. Let me add that in, and Chelsea. So those 4 areas, and Soho. Yeah, I said that. Yeah, Soho and Mayfair. So those areas they'll concentrate and focus there on. They won't go to a cafe in like Sutton or Croydon or somewhere like that. They won't. They'll live in those areas, but they won't go there. They won't party there. They won't want to be there. They'll live in a council block in those areas, but they want to go Mayfair because they want to be around the money. So women are attracted to the resources. They want to be around the resources, and men, we want to be around the beauty. There's a higher concentration and we want not just beauty. We want to be around a beauty that's not going to completely rinse our pocket. So we want to be in an area where there's a high concentration of beautiful women, and the women have realistic, maintainable standards. So Colombia, Medellin, Dominican Republic, Brazil, high amount of beautiful women, relatively reasonable standards. So brothers are always gonna flock that way. The word is definitely out, and this is the way we address the imbalance that we've had for the last 10 years in the dating market, and which is why there's very few black couples now. Black people in general, but my show always focuses on black people. We are the most single. There's never been more black people probably in the planet than there is now. But we are also at the same time the most. We've never been more single. We've never been more solo, alone, whatever you want to call it, because black people can't get on the same page. Kevin diagnosed it 1,000 times. Black women shoot too high. They overestimate their value. They have an 80% overweight rate. 80% of that rate is obese. They overestimate their value. They need to, most black women are average, and they need to get themselves a guy who earns 30, in the US, $40,000. In the UK, that would be £25,000. So that's what women need to, and be happy with it and be proud of that. But women choose not to do that, and they choose to aim higher. And what happens is they have to share a dude. They have to be a concubine. They have to be a chick that has to she's a Tuesday chick. That's a Wednesday chick. That's a first, you know what I'm saying? They have a slot in a higher value man's schedule. And that's the way it's gonna be. And if it's not that, they pick the Pookie or the Ray Ray. And we all know where that goes. So the adaptation is clearly the passport bro adaptation, and brothers need to do that. And you see the way I'm living, you see what I'm getting, you see what I'm trying to do, So brothers need to really get that update. Like how you got your software? You need to get that software update, download it, get that 12.1 update, and then you're good to go. You can start traveling to these lovely countries. You can start meeting women in different countries. There's multiple ways of meeting women abroad. Not something I'm going to get into today. Maybe that's for another show. You can book a consultation and give you the game. So guys, I think that's it for my first show. And tune in again. This is Lightbringer. I'm out.